On June 22nd, the President of the United States sat in the Oval Office with the President of Google and the CEO of IBM and signed two executive orders to win a race most people didn't know the United States was running. The orders direct the government to build the first quantum computer powerful enough for real scientific research, to deliver it to a Department of Energy facility by 2028, and to harden every sensitive federal system against the kind of cryptographic attacks that a working quantum computer could make possible. It was framed as a technology race with China. That part is accurate. But the mainstream coverage of these orders missed something that makes the story considerably stranger and more interesting when you know where to look. Also this week, new details emerged in the case of Melissa Casias, the Los Alamos National Laboratory employee whose remains were found in Carson National Forest last month. And those details don't support the clean narrative that has been circulating. The SETI Institute published the results of its search for alien radio signals coming from 3I Atlas. A philosopher made the case that consciousness may not be exclusive to Earth's biology. A 5,000-year-old wooden structure in southern England turned out to be the prototype for Stonehenge, built half a millennium before the stones. And a theoretical physics framework published this week proposes that dark matter and dark energy aren't things floating through space. They're the memory of where things used to be, written into space-time itself. Welcome back to Infinite Rabbit Hole.
Imagine that this line represents a time, present 1985, future, past. Prior to this point in time, somewhere in the past, the timeline skewed into this tangent, creating an alternate 1985. Alternate to you, me, and Einstein. Fuck. Reality for everyone else.
What's up, everyone? I'm Jeremy Sosha, and you're listening to the Infinite Rabbit Hole, your weekly briefing on the unexplained. Tonight, I'm joined by both of my co-hosts, Jake and CJ, and we've got an episode that connects some dots we've been laying down for a while. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button and leave us a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts, since it helps more people find the show. Also, remember, you can find us on infiniterabbithole.com, Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube. Before we get into it, a few things. On July 18th, I'll be presenting at the MUFON, Wisconsin meeting at the Waukesha Airport. And on July 25th, I'll be at Elmwood UFO Days presenting and leading bus tours throughout the day. So check your social posts for details on both. And if you're in the Menominee, Wisconsin area, we have IRH t-shirts and merch at TC Vintage downtown and copies of my book at Dragon Tales Books on Main Street. Two great local shops worth stepping into. Jake, CJ, how you guys doing? You guys ready to roll?
I had a terrible week.
No,
Lost most of my chickens to a bear attack.
you did. Do you
Got-
want to share the video?
No, I don't.
Oh, man.
I had my neighbors telling me that I couldn't shoot it, even though it was actively eating my chickens when I rolled over there. And the sheriff's deputies and the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources said that if a wild animal like a bear makes contact with a pet, a person, or livestock, it is the duty of the individual who owns them, or the individual, the person who's getting attacked, the person who's next to them, to basically take the animal out. And the fact that I didn't wasn't good, because there's a likelihood that the bear could come back and finish the rest of them off, or attack another neighbor's pets or anything like that. So, I mean, that was good to know. Bear left, knocked down the entire fence. We ended up taking the rest of the chickens and giving them away to a couple that came by to take them someplace safer. So it was a lot to deal with, trying to leave for work first thing in the morning on Tuesday. So that sucked. And then, yeah, just a lot of work this week. But I'm stoked for the episode. And tomorrow, I'm stoked to go to the Cheese Curd Fest in Ellsworth, Wisconsin.
Lucky.
And we got 4th of July coming up the next weekend. And at the end of July, or actually in the middle of July, I'm going with Jeremy to do his presentation. And then at the end of July, I'll be at UFO Days. So lots to look forward to in the next, month. So pretty stoked.
Man, I would love to go to the Cheese Curd Festival
Why can't you?
because
Why?
I work.
Why?
'Cause I work. But
Call
real
out
quick.
sick and just be like, oh
Yeah.
man, what's all that noise behind me? That's the radio.
Definitely not doing it. Side note, Parker, one of our cats, has been missing for 5 days. And the thing that keeps coming to mind is your bear friend. Jake and I live very, very close to each other, by the way. I could probably throw a football and hit his yard.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
we announced this last time. Okay, so the
yes.
UFO that Officer Wheeler sketched in 1976. It's a 2D sketch. It shows some things. Jeremy, can you bring that up on the screen so we can
I'm
see what the
working on it
sketch
now,
is?
yeah.
Okay, so what we did was we took this sketch and we gave the sketch to AI, and AI spit out a 2D image of what this UFO probably looked like. Then I took the image and I made a model in a 3D printing software so that I could bring 3D printed versions of Officer Wheeler's UFO sighting to UFO Days and sell little mini UFOs. So this was the first rendition, and it came out terrible. I don't know if anyone can see those layer lines. It's garbage, and I even tried splitting it in half and putting it like this so that it could try to print as smoothly as possible. Came out looking like absolute garbage. I am not happy with it one single bit. So I came up with the idea. I was like, well, what if I just split it in half? So that's what I did. I split it in half, and I made these two halves of the UFO. And then I printed them in this PLA silk, and then I painted the little windows and then the top dome and the little hose at the bottom that you can see inside that sketch right there.
Appendage.
Appendage.
Black appendage.
Oh my. But this took an awful long time to do, and you can see how smooth this is. I mean, this is just absolutely gorgeous. So what we're going to do is I'm going to scale this model down. This is probably about 6 inches. Scale it down to about 5 inches. And I'm going to put holes in the back, put magnets in there, and this is going to become a fridge magnet that if you show up at our booth during the Elmwood UFO Days, hopefully we're not sold out. I'll see how many I can print out in the next month. But this is going to be the model of the UFO that Officer Wheeler sketched in 1976. And you can stick this right on your fridge, and it will look like it's floating there. So I'm very stoked with this. This is a long process. We've been working on this for weeks to try to get something that looked realistically like that drawing that makes sense and get a good print out of it. And I am super, super stoked with the results. So look forward to that. They're probably, depending on the size, I'm not certain how much they're going to be. It's not going to be anything crazy, but this half took 3 hours to make with the 3D printer, and then I had to paint it and paint the windows and paint the appendage at the bottom. Gluing in the magnets is going to be its own thing, and hopefully they don't get damaged on the way there. But super stoked about it. Probably in the ballpark of $10 to $15. But yeah, we'll see how they do, and if you guys want one, I'm absolutely going to stick one of these on my fridge because I think this is super cool. But yeah, that's something we've been working on together and really happy with the way it's turning out so far.
Agree. All right. CJ, how are you?
Same shit, different day, deeper pile.
The bear attack your chickens?
No, worse. I have a squirrel digging holes in my gardens and uprooting all of my vegetable plants.
Motherfucker.
And I'm not allowed to shoot it either.
Well, not allowed.
If I want to keep my wife, or fiance, soon to be wife, 3 months.
Does she work?
Yeah.
There you go. She's driving away from the house. Boom!
Yeah, well, I live in
fireworks, babe. I don't know.
I live in the backwoods, so I'd have to get an air gun, but she would notice a new rifle in the house. She'd be like,
we'll use an old rifle.
I don't have any old rifles.
I'll send you one. This is America. I'll ship you one.
That'd be awesome.
In other news, Infinite Rabbit Hole podcast co-host Jake Owens was arrested this afternoon for trying to FedEx a rifle to his friend.
Private sales of rifles are legal in Pennsylvania.
There you go.
See? Yeah. But
All
no,
right.
honestly, the week's not been that bad for me. Your guys' week has been way more fucked up than mine. I'm in Jersey every day for my delivery route, and people are really disrespectful to me, and that's like the extent of the bad stuff that's happened. Oh, and the squirrel.
Dude, I love being mean to delivery drivers. It's like, it's the thing I do in the hopes that one day it's going to be you. It hasn't been so far, but one day it will be.
I give it back to them. So there's a, why you, I want to do it. I'm like, that has nothing to do with me. And I just like walk away while they're still bitching.
All right, you guys ready to get into quick hits?
Yes.
Yeah.
Before we get into our main stories tonight, let's run through quick hits, our rapid roundup of stories from the last 7 days that deserve your attention, even if we don't have time to go deep on them. So let's go. The SETI Institute, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, published the results of its search for artificial radio signals coming from our friend 3i Atlas, the third confirmed interstellar object ever observed passing through our solar system. And the answer is unambiguous. Nothing. Using the Allen Telescope Array at Hat Creek Radio Observatory in Northern California, the team scanned the object for over 7 hours across a frequency range wide enough to catch nearly any narrowband transmission, identified approximately 74 million candidate signals, and filtered them until about 200 remained. Every single one traced back to Earth-based technology or satellites in orbit. Lead researcher Dr. Sophia Sheik noted that if a cell tower or radio station had been transmitting from the surface of 3i Atlas, they would have detected it. This show has been following 3i Atlas since episode 273 as it moved through our solar system with chemistry and velocity that didn't fit anything born around our sun. The null result is what most astronomers expected. What makes it worth noting is that the methodology worked, and the next interstellar visitor will be searched the same way, only faster. Moving on, a new initiative announced this week by the Disclosure Foundation will conduct a formal review of NASA's entire public archive for UAP-related anomalies using artificial intelligence and machine learning. The executive committee is led by former NASA Associate Administrator Mike Gold and includes astronomer Beatriz Villarreal and aerospace engineer Travis Taylor, among others. 2 members of the committee previously served on NASA's own UAP independent study team. The initiative builds directly on the team's recommendations, which include applying AI to large public datasets to find what human reviewers might actually miss. A survey released alongside the announcement found that NASA is the most trusted government entity on the UAP issue by a significant margin, which is partly why the initiative is focused there rather than on the military files. The goal is to find anomalies in material that has been publicly available for years but hasn't been systematically examined for them. Moving on, a peer-reviewed philosophical paper published this week by Eric Schwitzbel and Jeremy Pober makes the argument that consciousness may not be exclusive to beings built the way we are. The argument isn't that other forms of consciousness definitely exist, but rather that our assumptions about what consciousness requires are probably too narrow, and that if the conditions for awareness can be met in radically different physical substrates, then the question of what else might be conscious becomes more open than the standard framework allows. The IRH relevance is direct. The disclosure conversation keeps brushing up against descriptions of non-human intelligence that don't map neatly onto the category of biological life as we understand it. Grush described a continuum on the Capitol steps 2 weeks ago that ranged from corporeal bipedal beings to something he called sentient plasma life. The philosophical framework for what he's describing has to be true for any of that to be possible. And this week's paper is a credentialed academic argument that it is. Moving on, announced the week of the summer solstice by Wessex archaeology and archaeologist Phil Harding, who called it the greatest find of his career, a 5,000-year-old site in Bulford, Wiltshire, just 3 miles from Stonehenge. Turns out to be the earliest known prototype for the solar alignment that would later define the famous stone circle. The structure consisted of 2 large wooden poles set 120 meters apart, precisely aligned to the rising sun at summer solstice and the setting sun at winter solstice. The wood is long gone, but the holes left in the chalk survived. And when you draw a line between them, it points in exactly the same direction as Stonehenge's central axis, built 500 years later. A rare disc-shaped flint knife was deliberately placed in one of the pits as what the team believes was a symbolic reference to the sun. The site was excavated between 2015 and 2017 as part of a Ministry of Defense housing project, but required years of analysis before it could be confirmed. One post pit is now under someone's front room. The other is in a public recreational area and still visible. Moving on, a theoretical physics framework published this week in Science Daily under the name Quantum Memory Matrix proposes treating information as the most fundamental ingredient of reality, more fundamental than matter or energy or even space-time itself. The core idea is that space-time is made of discrete cells that record the imprint of every mass that's passed through them, and that the residual gravitational echo of all those recorded movements is what we experience as dark matter and dark energy. If the math holds, neither of those things is a particle or a field or a force floating through space. They're the memories of where things used to be. The framework also claims to resolve the black hole information paradox, which has been one of the deepest unsolved problems in theoretical physics for decades. It's still theoretical, and peer review on several components is ongoing, but it's worth knowing about because it's another credentialed scientific argument that the universe is stranger and more layered than the current model accounts for, and that the things we don't understand may turn out to be features of reality we haven't correctly named yet. Moving on, the James Webb Space Telescope delivered its strongest evidence yet this week for the existence of a class of objects called black hole stars, massive, short-lived structures theorized to have formed in the earliest phase of the universe, before conventional stars and black holes existed as distant categories. The objects are thought to have been so enormous and so dense that the boundary between stellar physics and black hole physics essentially broke down. If they existed, they would represent a previously unknown phase of cosmic evolution that sits between the Big Bang and the universe we can actually observe. Webb didn't confirm their existence outright, but the data it returned this week is the closest any instrument has ever come to doing so. And it opens the question of whether the standard model of how the universe developed is missing a chapter at the very beginning. So, Jake, CJ said he finds nothing in 3i Atlas. The Disclosure Foundation's pointing AI at NASA's archives. A philosopher argues consciousness doesn't require biology. A wooden Stonehenge prototype buried for 5,000 years, dark matter as cosmic memory, and Webb hinting at something that rewrites the early universe. What's staying with you before we get into the main stories? Not all at once.
I want to be so famous one day that I could just randomly say some stupid nonsense about consciousness, and then people will write papers about it. Scientists don't even know what consciousness is, to then say like, oh, well, it's narrow-minded to assume that only humans are conscious. It's like, yeah, no doubt. Why is this paper worthy? It's like, I'll tell you one thing. My red lab Bailey is not conscious. There is nothing going on between those food, pets, and outside.
Oh, Bailey.
She is the most adorable, lovable dog, the one I always wanted growing up, and the one I have now as an adult, which is way better. And she is not conscious. I can tell you that much. But if she is, and that's a big if, but if she is, there's not a lot of thought going on in there. but she is adorable the way she is. But I mean, it's like, yeah, probably. Why is that? Like, I mean, that's crazy to be like,
the argument
someone's going to write a paper on and stuff, or write an article on.
The argument was more about what to expect with extraterrestrial or extra anything life.
Well, that's
right?
even better, because there's no provable evidence of any extraterrestrials whatsoever. So that's even better, because then you could literally become so famous that you could just say, if there was rock life out there, like in the in that movie that came out, right? What's the book? The
Project Hail Mary.
There it is, the Project Hail Mary movie. Like, if there's rock creatures out there that are made of, they have to live in a super hot environment, they could have consciousness too. And people are like, oh my gosh, I didn't think about that. And start writing down a paper on it. That's the level of famous that I want to be one day. Wherever I have to go to get there, to where I can just start saying random stuff and someone throws money at me, would just be great.
So Side tangent. I watched a movie this week.
Did you like it?
I did.
It
Mark
was
your
pretty good.
calendars, listeners.
I watched
You
a
read the
movie
book
this week.
first.
I did. I
He
had to
plowed
read.
through it.
I had to read the book first. And the book was phenomenal. Andy Weir's Project Hail Mary was a phenomenal read. And in the sense that books are always better than movies, the movie did pretty dang good. I don't think I've ever said that, like ever, about a movie compared to its book version. But the movie did really good. And for how long it was, I think it was 2.5 hours long.
It was a good one. Yeah, it was pretty
I
decent
mean,
length.
it fit most of what it really had to fit in there. I mean, obviously it missed a lot of shit because
Sure.
the book is 300, almost just a hair over 400 pages long. And there's a ton more detail between, Grace and Rocky and just nuanced things that they did. The whole figuring out the language thing was expanded upon, and
Sure.
there was just this whole ton more things where they took what literally took a chapter in the book and then they made it as something that was just kind of figured out, like, oh shoot, the whole process where Grace, the astronaut, was up in the tunnel between the two ships, and he comes to this little glass piece and he looks down. Well, they went into the explanation in the book that Rocky actually set up different
Symbols.
no, so they were basically the zeonite, the stuff that he used to create the solid that he built basically his entire ship and his whole civilization pretty much works on. He built different versions of it and allowed the astronaut to kind of tell him which one worked best for him by seeing which one he showed more attention to. And that's when he came down to that little corner of glass, and then the next time you see him, the whole wall is glass. Well, that's because there was slight variations of each alloy, I guess you would call it, right? Because from what we understand in the book, so the element that they use is a noble gas, but it's like a metal material in the book and then in the movie. But in the book, he's describing a few of those different plates, like one's slightly redder or goldish. And then he discovers that there's a clear one and he's like, oh, and then that's what tells Rocky, hey, this is what we should build out of because he
doesn't have eyes and he can't see, right? So he's like,
right.
What can you see through to be able to observe me? Sure.
Right. And some of them are different, like some of them are porous because Rocky sees the world through sound, right? So if he went to one that was more porous, he would know that he would be sound-based sensed instead of sight-based sensed. Like,
right.
They spent more time on how Rocky doesn't even know what sight is with eyes. Like the whole concept of seeing things through light was expanded upon in the book dramatically more than it was in the movie. But
well, the movie would be 8 hours long if they tried to cram those nuanced details in and things like that, right? It'd be insane.
And Andy Weir did such a good job with the book. The one thing I liked about the movie better was that Dr. Grace, the main character, was actually pretty funny in the movie. He was more serious in the book, but the actor that played him in the movie did a great job. And I mean, he didn't really remind me of the Dr. Grace from the book, but it was in a good way. I think it actually made it better. Either way.
But I mean, to my point, if aliens are real and if they are in fact visiting us, then yes, they would have to be conscious in some way, shape, or form, because non-conscious life does not create alien ships or does not create ships and explore other regions in the same sort of way. They might migrate, but they don't advance technologically. So like we might observe a chimpanzee using a stick to get bugs out of a hole, but they aren't passing that information along to where even in the young Earth's 8,000 years that the Earth has been around, I believe chimpanzees have been around. They haven't passed that knowledge down to where now they're building structures and machines and stuff to cultivate bugs better or faster or anything like that. And I would say it's because they are not conscious and they are working off of instinct. And maybe part of that instinct is small problem solving, right? But it's like I would believe they would have to, or I would think they would have to be conscious in some level to advance technologically. So saying something like that is just a silly given if that circumstance is real. And I just want to get so famous one day that I could make silly observations like that and people be like, oh crap, and start writing it down and put it out somewhere.
Well,
and then podcast hosts would talk about it. That's
Joke's
it.
on you. Rick and Morty said there's a character in that show that's an intelligent fart. So,
well, there you go.
Yeah.
Also, I hope that all the people that were getting freaking crazy about 3i Atlas feel very silly.
I also don't agree with that at all because I'm still excited about 3i Atlas, even though there isn't radio signals. Okay.
He feels silly. He just doesn't want to say it.
No, I don't feel silly. I don't feel silly. I think that only looking at radio signals is a very human thing to do. Now, I understand that any intelligent civilization will most likely create a radio signal, right? And we can detect that, but how do we know that is their form of communication? Just to go far left field here, how do we know that they're not talking back with their home planet using quantum physics, superposition and quantum entanglement, speaking into an atom that expels what you said to through another atom across the entire galaxy in a split second.
And maybe they're like Rocky and they don't know what radiation is.
Maybe that too.
It's Rocky,
which they also went into better detail about in the book.
Of course they did. I don't like that sorry, I'm kind of taking over CJ's time too. I don't like that they buried one of the poles for the Stonehenge thing underneath someone's house. If you go to historic Williamsburg or Jamestown in Virginia, I think either of those two sites, they have where buildings used to be, because wood doesn't hang around for forever, even after a couple hundred years, it completely disintegrates, but they have the post holes, and we have those areas like turned into parks and monuments so that people can go and see them and be like, this is where the First Nation was. I think it's pretty BS that they would be like, well, here's one. The other one is in that person's living room or underneath it. After we looked at it for 10 seconds and we're like, that's a hole. All right, go ahead and put a house here. It's just like, I get it. You guys have castles and all kinds of really cool stuff, but some people think that that's really cool too,
And we have a higher expectation for historical things because we're a really, really young country, right? Like there's people in England who have furniture older than our country.
Well, sure.
So they've been surrounded by ancient and old structures for generations beyond what we can even begin to imagine. So it probably doesn't hold the same weight there that it does here.
But at the same time, in some ways, they're a lot different and they're even better at it, because one thing that I've noticed here is that the reason why you don't have a lot of those like beginning of the nation buildings is because no one took the time to preserve them in the same way. When I went on deployment to Europe, I mean, there was active mass going on in a 1,000-year-old cathedral that we were touring the outside, being really quiet, in the roped off sections. But it was just like mind-blowing stuff to see, and you think like, well, why can't we have anything like that? And it's like, oh, because we let structures get old and then we rip them out of the ground and put a Walmart there, and so in some regards they're way better at it than we are, because we kind of think in this like, oh, everything has to be modern sort of sense. And then in other ways, I agree with you, they're probably more exposed to it, and they're like, it's a dime a dozen, a historical site. And then for us, we're like, oh my gosh, this house is 100 years old. It was built in 1901. You're not allowed to paint it. And it's like, I lived in a place like that. We couldn't paint the outside of it because it was part of a historical district. But at the same time, anything older than that, and it's like, yeah, but you guys ripped that thing out of the ground. They're like, oh, well, I mean, it's falling apart. It's like,
I
You
mean,
know?
we don't have like American historical sites like that, but like we do have historical sites like
We have
that
Native
in the
American,
country,
right?
like Native American, like
Right.
they have like the things built in the sides, like ravines and like those ancient cities and whatnot. And for some reason, we just don't talk about them very often. And it's not something that like you can go there if you want to, but it's not widely projected that these things are there. You know what I mean? Like it's not in our forefront the way like a lot of American historical sites are, where we have these other things that are also really, really cool that go way, 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 way back to first people's time and you know, all that. So I mean, it's not that they don't exist here, they just don't exist in quantity and they don't get quite as old as say Roman structures and pyramids and well, Egyptian pyramids. So I guess we have to be specific. There's pyramids everywhere.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know.
Well, the good thing about them finding a prototype is that shows that it's human.
Yeah.
If it was aliens, I don't think they'd have a prototype.
Well, at least not here, right?
Yeah, I mean, or it'd be like levitating posts. This is where we're gonna put the stones versus
An obelisk.
us just kind of like trying to figure it out where the sun rises and sets and being like, okay, you know, or rises in both, you know, solstices or whatever, and just be like, okay, this is how we're gonna do it. So that
I
leads
do-
more credence into it being people that figured it out versus like alien technology and stuff, right?
I do think it's really, really cool that we have these things to demonstrate that like we built like scale models before building the main structures for things, and that's still a thing we do to this day. Like that's a technology that like the way we build those models changed, but like the idea behind it never changed. Like build the model, see how it is, build it full size. And that's just a technology that's survived since the beginning. Well, since they invented doing it, but it's been a very,
Sure.
very long time. I think that's awesome.
All right, you guys ready?
I also think that NASA being the most trusted government thing is
Oh,
hilarious because
yeah,
that
yeah.
bar is not high.
I was hoping one of you guys were going to call that out, because when I saw that, I was like, okay, this is a talking point right here. Somebody's going to mention this, so I put it in there just to fish one out for you guys.
Well, I mean,
thank you,
how
CJ.
how hard was it to get that grade? Like the curve was
Dude,
there.
I when I saw that, I was like, okay, so what is like, what do we trust least or less than NASA? Like
Everything.
I
Like-
mean, yeah, but like, I mean, NASA's got to be towards the fucking bottom of things that I trust from the government. But then I'm like thinking about the government. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I mean, shit. We know NASA lies, but this other, you know, like the Department of whatever fucking lies even more. It's like,
Right.
I mean,
Let me tell you
it's at
something,
the,
Jeremy.
It's at the
I
top
would-
of the pile, but is that pile like, is it big? No, it's probably not.
I have a child with autism level 2 and ID, and I would trust him alone with a closed door in a room full of breakable glass before I will trust any of our government. So NASA being the most trusted, it's not really an achievement.
I don't know. I
that
don't know
was
if
the
you
joke.
voted on this. It's like who voted on them being the go-to? Because I sure as heck didn't get some random text message saying like, "How much do you trust NASA?" You know, it's like most trusted from whose standpoint? They
I
just asked
don't know.
Trump. They're like, hey, who do you trust more? He's like, NASA goes to the moon. They're like, all right, fine. And NASA's the most trusted. It's like, where was the vote for this? Right? It's very
it's like saying
Weird
in a group
wording.
of monkeys that are throwing sticks and rocks at you, that one's the most intelligent one because he accidentally picked up the pointy one and threw it at you. Like,
Right. See, doesn't show consciousness, but yeah, definitely.
You'd be surprised how many times I put these little traps into the script because I read them somewhere else in some other article. I'm like, oh yeah, that one will be great. We'll talk about that, and that's exactly one of them.
He's gotten me a couple times. Like last episode and the episode prior were pretty good for that sort of stuff. I don't understand this whole dark matter cosmic memory thing, because again, it's the same problem as the consciousness thing. Dark matter, that's just theoretical as far as I'm aware.
So I don't know if you were a part of the episode, but we had discussed dark matter and dark energy at one point, and
it was recently. It's like a month ago.
Okay, yeah, and I laid down a couple examples of how to think of it, and dark matter, right? There are objects out there that we can't see, but are influencing other
Right.
objects
I said
gravitationally.
the river that you can't see through because it's murky, but you can see the rock inside of it because
Right.
the water's swirling around it, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you were.
Yeah.
And I actually had a few people reach out to me and were like, "Hey, thanks for explaining dark matter and dark energy in, a way that I could understand it, because honestly, it was something I never really understood before. Nobody puts it in, with lack of a better term, layman's terms."
Sure. Okay, well, thank you for refreshing my memory. So, okay, so let's say not theoretical, but saying that it's not actually influencing the objects around it, and instead it's somehow a memory of something that used to be there. That only works in the realm of things are very, very, very far away. So when we see a supernova, that happened so many millions of years ago or some amount of time, and now we're just getting the light from it. So if that's the case, if the James Webb Telescope or we observe it in some way, shape, or form, then yes, we could say, well, it's not actually happening now. It did at some point, and now we're just able to observe it. So I guess that makes sense.
And
Right.
this is another concept that has been discussed when it comes to dark matter, right? So dark matter is something that we can't see, but we can see its gravitational influences on other objects. One theory, right? And it's a depending on how you feel about relativity, Einstein's theory of general and specific relativity, or sorry, just stick to general. Speed of light. It's considered a constant, but is it constant? Due to relativity, we believe yes. But with new evidence, could it be proven that speed of light is not constant, that it can be affected by other things? Now when you get into his other half of relativity, you start looking at gravitational pulls, right? And how that influences a beam of light. That's where you get the event horizon. That's where you get quasars and all the weird shit that black holes do. Now, could we be looking at that? Because if general relativity says that if we looked at it, we would be getting the light from whatever the object is and the other bodies at the same time, because they would be traveling at the same time. So yes, we may be seeing a picture from 27,000 years or 2,700 years in the past, because that's how long it took the light to get to us. But we are seeing the gravitational influence, but we're not seeing the influencer. In general relativity, we would see both, because as soon as the influencer, something happens to that, the gravitational influence that it has on everything around it would cease to exist, just as the influencer would. Now, if the speed of light is not constant, that it does flow at different speeds depending on multiple different sources or influences, right? Whether it be gravity or something that we don't quite understand, could we be looking at an area of space where we can no longer see the influencing body, but we can see that what it does influence, because the light it coming to us is taking different speeds to us. That is a possibility. Now, breaking into what they were talking about in their study is that I just want to go on record. I'm not a huge fan of the explanation, but that not necessarily that it's a memory, but that it could be in some form or shape something that we cannot perceive. And it actually holds true to more or less the original concept of dark matter. Dark matter could be something that we literally cannot perceive. Like Rocky from Project Hail Mary. Can't see light, right? Cannot perceive what light is, what colors are. But that could be something that we don't notice too. Like it could be something where we would have to use a completely different sense to see it. It's there. We see the gravitational influence that it has on other astral bodies, but we cannot perceive it because we don't have the tools to perceive it. We
Mhm.
would have no idea what tool we would need to perceive it. And I think that this is more along the book side of explanations for this, right? Because the book dove way more into, well, if Rocky wasn't aware of the speed of light, that's because he wasn't aware of light. That's why it took far less time for him to get to Tau Ceti than they had projected in their math, because they were moving close to the speed of light. That the way that you perceive time when you're moving close to the speed of light is different from people standing still on your home planet. It's all relativity laws,
Mhm.
right? They literally had no concept of the speed of light because they literally could not perceive light. So there was no way of getting to the whole general relativity of speed of light and how that affects your perception of time. They also went in the book about how the people or Rocky species literally didn't know of the other planets in their solar system because they didn't look up at the sky and see other stars or planets. And it wasn't until they broke through in a certain technology that they were able to perceive other astral bodies in their solar system. And then they were able to see that their star was dying or dimming because of the astrophage, right? It's
Sounds like I need to listen to the audiobook.
if you want it gets really nerdy. That's all I could say. It does.
I mean, this show gets really nerdy, and here I am,
okay.
5.5 years later.
Okay, whatever. No, you're a nerd.
I mean, yeah, I'm making UFOs and stuff. Yeah.
All right, you guys ready to go on the briefing?
Yeah, I guess.
Sorry,
If you're not willing to admit that you feel silly about 3-Eye Atlas, then
I don't.
fine. I'll move on.
I don't. I think it was very interesting. Whether it is just a space rock or an alien visitor, it's still very interesting to me. All right, let's get into our briefing. This show has been following the case of Melissa Casias since episode 273, when her name was added to the list of missing scientists and government employees. We were tracking alongside McCaslin, Chavez, Garcia, and others. Casias was a Los Alamos National Laboratory administrative assistant who disappeared on June 26, 2025, and whose skeletal remains were found in the McGaffey Ridge area of New Mexico's Carson National Forest last month, alongside a handgun her family says did not belong to her, in an area that had already been searched once before without success. We talked about this at length last episode. This week, 2 new details emerged that sit uncomfortably with the clean narrative that has been the default framing for her case. The first comes from LA Magazine contributor Lauren Conlin, who has been covering Casias closely and told News Nation that before Melissa walked out of her front door on the day she disappeared, she took 2 things with her: her toothbrush and her thyroid medication. She left behind her purse, car keys, her car, and both of her phones, which were later found factory reset. But she took her toothbrush and her medication. Colin's point is precise. Those are things someone takes when they intend to come back. They are not things someone takes when they are making a clean break from their life, which has been the framing offered by investigators and at least one former FBI agent who reviewed the case publicly. The second detail is that Casias' husband has obtained a temporary protection order against a private investigator who has been actively pursuing and harassing the family in connection with the case. The PI's identity and who hired them have not been publicly reported. What the detail tells you, regardless of how you read it, is that external parties are actively working this case outside of official channels, and the family is having to go to court to create distance from that pressure. None of this proves anything about what happened to Melissa Casias. What it does is make the mental health crisis framing harder to hold onto cleanly. People in mental health crises do not typically pack their toothbrushes. In cases where private investigators are aggressively pursuing bereaved families while the official investigation is still open are not typically routine. Her case isn't closed. The cause and manner of her death are still officially undetermined. And the questions that were already there are now accompanied by a couple of new ones that deserve to be named. So, Jake, CJ, she took her toothbrush and her thyroid meds, left her phone and her car, And now there's a private investigator harassing her family under circumstances nobody has explained publicly. After everything this show has covered on the scientist's story, where does it land with you?
There's a forest in Japan known as the
Okigahara.
yeah. A lot of times when people are going out there, if they're on the fence, they'll take things with them, right? That you wouldn't normally see somebody who's decided that that is in fact what they're going to do.
Yeah.
So just to play devil's advocate a little bit, it's possible that this woman knew that maybe she wanted to, but wasn't 100% sold on the situation, right? So interesting. I mean, it's definitely something to think about, but I wouldn't say it's so uncommon that we can use it as like definitive proof that, yeah, that's what was going on.
So Okigahara is something I have been teetering on doing a documentary episode for a very long time. Good point, by the way, CJ. Very good point. Very, very strange. It is known as Japan's suicide forest. Now, whatever. Anyways, I have a few books, right? I just grabbed one. You can see it's just called Okigahara. I have a few of them back here. I'm not going to fish them out right now, but there are some very, very interesting things here. And when you get into the habits of those people that walk off into Okigahara to whatever their final scene in their life is, you're right. They do. There has been a lot of weird cases of things that they bring with them. And sometimes it is medication. A lot of times it's a collection of shoes, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And actually I brought up just to share with everybody.
Yeah, they'll bring necessities to survive for a couple of days. They'll tie ribbons so that they can find their way out.
Yes.
They'll bring things like if like they think that this is they want to log out of the simulation altogether, they'll do but they're not always sold on it, right? And some of them decide to come back out and not do it.
Yes. And so you're familiar with Okigahara. Obviously, the rope thing is something that people overlook as one of the most eerie situations or concepts of the whole Okigahara forest phenomenon, and it's because people will actually go out there, like you said. They'll go out there. There's the book. They'll go out there and they will bring kilometers worth of rope with them, and they'll tie it around a tree next to their car where they parked it, and they'll just walk. And the reason for it is because it's so easy to get lost in Okigahara. Okigahara is the geography of this is basically old volcanic magma. Right? There's these large pockets of nothing where they just fall to their death. That's another reason why they bring the rope too, is because if they do end up falling down one of these chutes, they have a way to climb out. But they say that there's other reasons other than just to be able to find their way out if they change their mind. But it's also so that search parties can find them when they go out and look for them, because there are a lot of people that go out there and do this. And we do need to find the remains of these people. And a lot of people that go through this bring the rope, and we only know this is confirmed because of, letters that are left on their person that says, hey, I left the rope to make it easier to find me, blah, 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 blah. But there has also been multiple times where they have found things like medication where it shows that they were going to be out there for a while, or that they weren't 100% set on their decision. That's a good point, CJ. Maybe she wasn't 100% set on her decision. Maybe this is something that's simply a mental health crisis. And I know that there is a healthy stock of people in the population of Earth that are completely obsessed with dental hygiene, that brush 3 or 4 times a day because they don't like the plaque buildup on their teeth. Maybe it's just something that's a comfort thing for her while she was out there, while she was deciding. Good point. Very good point.
That is a great point. I have nothing to add past that. I'm glad the CJ was in this episode.
Very good point. Good job, CJ.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you guys.
You earned your spot.
You contributed.
Yay. And how?
Anyways, if anybody listening wants me to do a documentary episode on Okigahara, the thing is that the reason why I shelved it is because there's no mystery to it. It's just a dark story. That's the thing, right? And that's why I never ended up actually doing the episode, because I was expecting there to be paranormal stories and creatures and stuff that we could dive into. Yes, it does come with a little bit of its own ghost stories and stuff, but for the most part, it's just a very, very sad place. That's it.
Yep, pretty much.
I mean, it's in the heart of a culture that historically has deemed honor as the most important thing, and when that is compromised, that it can sometimes be so horrible that it can lead to taking one's life. And
Yes.
that's not a culture that we experience here in the United States. Some people hang on for years, just having just one bad day after another, or loss of a job, loss of a family, all kinds of stuff, and then just we couldn't really comprehend the idea of honor, and one's honor being so important that if that is compromised or lost in any way, that could drive someone to say, well, and that's a wrap, right? And so yeah, not really a mystery, although it is difficult for like the American brain by and large to come to terms with that sort of a lifestyle or a belief, right? Yeah, very interesting.
Here, I just to make this even weirder for everybody. Hold on, let me share my screen one more time. I wanted to see if there was good pictures of ropes. You can see there's a couple from Okigahara. It's and some of them are so bad that they're so cluttered, like this one right here.
Yeah. Ribbons are a big one there too.
Yeah,
Ropes and ribbons.
here's one. It's just a rope, and it's like, could you imagine knowing that that's what that means, and being part of like the search and rescue crew, and you're just like, shit, you got to follow the rope, and like you know that what you're gonna find at the end of it is bad. Man, it's rough. And like, look at these ladies. They're just like, I'm in Suicide Forest. Anyways. At the base of Mount Fuji, by the way. That's
You feeling real silly if like somebody with just some morbid curiosity went out there and you guys like chased down the rope and he's just sitting there at his campsite, just like, come on.
just needed to find my way out, man. All right. You guys ready for the deep dive? This is gonna be a good one. I think this one might have the biggest talking points of the episode. It's great. We're already an hour in. This is
Biggest talking points of the episode. Oh my.
Yeah.
You know, I've spent most of this episode shutting the fuck up because you guys always blame me for dragging the episode out.
Dude, you literally, like, that point you made in the last talking point, like, I was sitting here the whole time like, dude, can you just shut up already? Like,
Yeah.
20 minutes? Like, gosh, dang, bro.
We're still an hour in.
all right. Let's go deep. On June 22nd, Donald Trump signed 2 executive orders in the Oval Office, with the president of Google and the CEO of IBM standing behind him. The first is called Ushering in the Next Frontier of Quantum Innovation. It establishes a national effort called QCADS, or the Quantum Computer for Application Development and Discovery Science, and directs the government to build the first quantum computer powerful enough to perform genuine scientific research, with a target of delivering it to a Department of Energy facility by 2028. The second order, securing the nation against advanced cryptographic attacks, sets hard deadlines for migrating every sensitive federal system to post-quantum cryptography, key systems by the end of 2030, high-impact environments by the end of 2031. The framing for the White House was explicit. This is a race with China. The United States intends to win it, and the timeline is aggressive because the consequences of losing are serious. The mainstream coverage has largely reported this as a technology policy story with a national security dimension, and it's accurate. But it misses something that makes the story considerably stranger and more interesting when you know where to look. Quantum computers at the scale needed for genuine scientific application require operating temperatures close to absolute 0 Kelvin. The coolant that makes that possible, the material that absorbs heat at those temperatures without interfering with the quantum processes involved, is helium-3 or H3. On Earth, the entire annual global production of H3 fits inside a minivan. It is extraordinarily rare here because our planet, protected by the magnetic field, deflects the solar wind rather than absorbing it. The moon has no such protection. For 4.5 billion years, the solar wind has been depositing helium-3 directly into the lunar surface, grain by grain, in concentrations that scientists estimate could represent approximately 1 million metric tons of the material sitting on the top layer of lunar soil right now. 1 million metric tons of the essential coolant for the technology Trump just signed an executive order to build on a surface that 5 major space agencies and a growing list of private companies are racing toward right now. The public framing of the space race, which is exploration, national pride, scientific curiosity, is not wrong, but it is incomplete. Energy Secretary Chris Wright said at the signing ceremony that quantum computing will join artificial intelligence and advanced semiconductors as the 3-part foundation of future computing technology. He said the administration will have scientifically relevant, error-corrected quantum computing during this administration. For that to be true by 2028, the supply chain questions around what quantum computers need to run become relevant very quickly. There is one other detail worth noting. NASA's Cold Atom Lab on the International Space Station was upgraded this week and is now conducting quantum research in microgravity, creating ultra-cold matter in conditions impossible to replicate on Earth. The government is already doing quantum experiments in space. The executive orders point toward doing quantum computing on Earth, with resources extracted from space. The space agencies of 5 nations are racing toward the surface that holds those resources. Those threads are not separate stories. They are the same story at different scales, and we are watching them converge in real time. So Jake, CJ, the government just committed to a quantum computer by 2028. Quantum computers need helium-3. The moon has 1 million metric tons of it, and every major space agency is heading there right now. How's that picture sit with you?
I just got this image in my head of the movie Spaceballs when the ship turns into a giant maid with a vacuum cleaner and sucks the atmosphere off of the planet. And that's what we're going to do to the surface of the moon, a giant vacuum that's going to suck up all the space dirt, all the moon dust off of the surface, and then we're going to filter it here on Earth and pull the helium-3 out of it.
So I got to show you guys something.
It's
so
the best way. It's
I
the
think
only
we just start following these companies, and whatever one looks the best, we just buy a shitload of stock in.
Which is funny because they just announced that Spaceballs 2 is coming out next year. So there it is.
I've never seen Spaceballs.
Wow.
Maybe one day.
Which one of these companies were the ones that just lapped the moon recently?
NASA.
So
Like,
invest
were they
in
funded?
IBM
Were they
eventually.
funded by one of these companies? Like, were any of these companies participating in their funding?
I don't know. You'd have to look at it, but
Because that's the one we need to buy stock in.
That is the connection that I did want to paint. Was we did spend considerable amount of time on that, right? There is this very active push to get to the moon again. I just want to show this because somebody had made a comment, and I try to ignore negative comments now. I don't try to give them any time, but somebody was like, how does he just come up with these little stupid tangents he goes on? Well, because every time I write a script, I also write a subscript of little tangents that I can go on. Okay. All of this has to deal with what we're talking about right now, right? If something comes up and you guys say, well, what's the point of that? Right? Who cares? The supply gap is why, right? And what's the Outer Space Treaty of 1967? What's fusion versus fission? Like this is all stuff that could come up in conversation. Jake goes to Spaceballs.
Right. It's the best option. don't come at me with this. Oh, you're going to Spaceballs. How else are we going to do it besides the spaceship that turns into a giant maid with a vacuum cleaner? All right. Look, just because you haven't seen the movie doesn't make it, it's like
Whichever
I've never heard
company-
about quantum entanglement. That doesn't mean it's not relevant in conversation. Okay.
Whichever company in whatever country sets up the first mining operation up there, the entire world's just going to like go to war against them.
Yes, this has huge implications because
Could you imagine
China
someone shoots a nuke at the moon to blow up this mining operation?
I think it
China
would be really, really funny to watch little groups of people like bounce walking, trying to fight each other. I think that might be fun.
Yeah,
Could you imagine a
You
live
remember-
stream on that?
you remember the
Get
show
that up on
Celebrity?
FanDuel?
Remember the show Celebrity Deathmatch? You just have like moon deathmatch. Throw them
Dude,
out there and throw a
we
knife
could-
out there.
We could have so many movie references. Like, people are bad, we send them to the mines on the moon, like just send them to the mines. There's a couple movie references in there of people being sent to the mines on a distant planet. I think
Really?
Total Recall is part of it. But
Someone's up there and they're just like, oh, look, there's those Chinese motherfuckers. And they just run over and just start poking holes in their suits. They're not even like stabbing their physical bodies. They're just like poking holes in their suits and running over.
Anyways,
It's going to be a mess is what I'm trying to say. Like capitalism is definitely going to be at the forefront of this situation and it's going to be a mess.
and
Whatever company gets closest to this quantum computer first is going to have a giant target painted on it. It's going to be a problem.
See, the problem is that the individuals, because I get the whole race thing. It was like a race for AI. We have to have AI down and pat before China gets a hold of it, so we can have AI first or whatever. That sort of thing. And then they're super secretive about how they're making their AI, but we know that they're using microprocessors that are coming from Taiwan and stuff like that. And so we need Taiwan to not be overtaken by China so that we can get their microprocessors or the chips so that we can do the AI thing. Whoever is figuring out the quantum physics thing or quantum computing, the dumbest thing for them to have said is announce it that, oh, it takes helium-3, which can only be found on the surface of the moon, which is just like Antarctica. It can't be claimed by an individual nation. Everyone is allowed to go there and study and do research and take samples and do all this sort of stuff. If you can get there, right? If you can get to the center of Antarctica, you can do all your stuff. And we have the capability of doing it, and I think Russia does too, and all this sort of stuff. If you can get to the moon, you can do whatever you want to on the moon. Because we can all benefit from the moon. It was the dumbest thing for them to broadcast that we need helium-3 to super cool these computers for quantum computing because they get so dang hot. And it's only found on the moon. They could have just left that part out because now we're going to have this huge international conflict because
Well, let's
here's the
explore
thing.
the actual bigger problem of that situation real quick. They're saying that this quantum computer is for research. The first thing they're going to try to do is build weapons with it. So whoever gets there first and sets up a mining operation is going to have such a stranglehold over this key resource that will build a weapon that no cybersecurity can defend against, right? It'll have the ability to solve mathematical issues and create weapons that people can't even begin to imagine yet.
Completely destroy someone's
and
internet
the
footprint
first-
in an entire country in less than a millisecond.
The first company that gets there will have the power to control that situation. Like, do we see how dangerous this is?
It's very dangerous. And to kind of answer both of you, China is years ahead of us. China is said to be on the dark side of the moon already mining this stuff. Said to be at the southern pole already mining this stuff. And they have been doing it for quite a while, apparently.
Oh, good. So we're screwed. Very nice.
These are rumors, right? So when you ask, well, why would we say that there's H3 up there? I think what happened was China discovered it first. They said, hey, all these quantum computers, we need something really cold. Well, the moon's got H3. It's something that actually we've known about for quite a while, H3 and the moon. It's a byproduct of the radiation from the sun breaking down its own helium as part of its first phase. And the reason why it settles on the moon is because it doesn't have the atmosphere and the magnetic field that the Earth does. But when the U.S. realized that that is why China is going to the moon, that's why they're on the dark side, America was like, oh shit, this is not good. So the best way to ruin somebody else's plans is to announce it, right? And it's like, oh shit, dude, Jake has fucking Dunkables, right? Those little dunk cookies and the icing. Dunkaroos. Thanks, man. Dunkables.
You're an embarrassment to fat people.
Jake got Dunkaroos, right? You announce that shit at in the calf at lunchtime. You're getting fucking bothered. Everybody wants fucking Dunkaroos, right?
So it's like having gum in your pocket during math class.
Yeah. It's like, bro, you got a gun, bro? Let me get some of that. Like, fuck, man. Damn it. Why the fuck did anybody have to say shit? Right? It's the same thing that's happening with H3 right now. China's like, yo, we got all this shit. And America's like, Hey, China's got, they're mining H3 right now. We all need that. We all want the Dunkaroos. Let's get up there and get them Dunkaroos. Let's go.
What's crazy is the minute this computer exists, we have an entire professional field full of millions of people whose careers are on a countdown clock because there is no cybersecurity against a quantum computer.
Unless you can create quantum cybersecurity that can stay ahead of quantum
algorithmic
But the problem with creating cybersecurity ahead is it's almost like you can predict some of the things that's going to do. There will be 0-day hacks using this quantum computer that it will find instantaneously beyond anything you were able to predict. It'll be irrelevant because no matter how fast you figure out how to stop it from doing something, it will instantaneously figure out a way around. If you stop this attack, it will 0-day another attack. And if it doesn't, and it's instant because these are quantum computers, what they're designed to do. That's what they said. They can instantaneously hack any system, right? Our data will be out there immediately. Cybersecurity will be irrelevant because no matter what you do, no matter what you come up with, it will circumvent it immediately.
Right.
You know what this sounds like to me? CJ, you were talking about it before the episode. This sounds like another puzzle piece in the Mark of the Beast and the Antichrist system. This whole getting your bank account shut off the second that you stop worshiping him as God type stuff. It's like people are like, well, that's ridiculous. You couldn't do that. You sure as heck can.
Oh yeah, they're talking about AI, like they're creating a digital god. I've heard that term, digital god, get used several times in the last couple of weeks.
I have heard that a lot. We had a conversation about something else that CJ has heard a lot about prior to recording today, but that one there, I have heard that a lot lately.
Yeah, this is all stuff that I've been paying attention to because, like I said, like I've been teasing Jake for years about it, and now I'm hearing it everywhere out of the blue, you know. So it's really interesting. And then Jake's right, like this sort of
imagine that.
I don't remember exactly, like if we're going to look at it in a biblical sense, I don't remember exactly what the Bible says about who the Antichrist is, but it is supposed to be some sort of false god, correct?
There's an image that people worship, and there's a being that claims that he is God. Like it's a person.
So AI combined with a quantum computer could be that.
Worship. For the longest time, it's been like, think of like North Korea, where everyone has a photograph, a framed photograph of Kim Jong-un inside their house, right? And then they have to recognize him as God. That was been the idea for forever, but ever since holograms and AI and all sorts of stuff has kind of come around, well, now that image could literally be like a two-way video screen where you have to look upon this image and in some way, shape, or form acknowledge this image of this individual as God. And if you don't, they immediately shut down your bank account. You get exposed, and then the suits come over and like kill your whole family, right? So whatever that looks like, you know, not having the ability to buy or sell unless they worship the image of the beast. Well, what does that look like 20 years ago? That looks like North Korea, where if you don't recognize your supreme leader is God, then we're going to come and capture you and we're going to put you in prison, and that's going to be it. We go further and further and further into this quantum stuff and this technology and this AI stuff and things like that, and it gets way more scarier because think of how many things are recording your face at any time. Your phone is watching you pick your nose, right? Your phone's watching you
Yeah.
because I'm pretty sure, like everything that I have on my phone that has like a facial scanner or something like that, it's always waiting for you to just open up an app so it can just be like, oh, there's you, stuff like that. So think of like the blackmail tactics of every bad website you've ever gone, looking at your phone screen and it's recording you doing what you're doing, right? You don't think about that sort of stuff, but it's doing it, right? This thing right here is recording us and all sorts of stuff. So at any point throughout the day, unless you live, completely isolated out in the woods, and even then there's satellites, you are being photographed every single second of every single day that there's technology around you. You're being recorded, right? It gets way, 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 way scarier when the idea that any thought that might come into my head where this individual isn't God could cause me to get my head cut off. Absolute subjugation to every single person on the face of the earth.
Well, on top of that, we're
Only
creating
way to
something.
do that, it sounds like, is quantum technology.
Well, we're creating
Right?
technology
We're creating the system.
it's infinitely smarter than us.
Right.
It learns through algorithms, and we're using the term digital god, and these people are worshiping demons and and we're giving it all of that information, and it can create that identity, and then it ends up in a system of infinite power that can hack anything instantly, know everything, calculate everything instantly, circumvent any system instantly. We literally have created a digital god, which is sort of alongside that prophecy that you were just talking about.
Look, I'm not saying that if someone held up a steak knife to my neck right now and said, say this person's God, or I'm going to saw your head off your shoulders, that I wouldn't be scared beyond belief. I can't imagine what I would do, but I'm telling you right now that I will say no, right? That's just it. Because for me, to be absent with the body is to be present with the Lord. I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to pay bills and taxes and have a herniated disc in my lower back, right? So just take me out. but for people that are so, stranglehold on their lives and stuff like that, which I'd imagine is quite most of the earth probably, that's going to be their one way or another, and it's going to be okay, fine, we'll do this thing, and it's going to be absolute subjugation, and you can't have that worldwide in every single country without something like this. And here we are racing towards this. So it's just, for me, when I see things like this, or I see like this horrific earthquake in Venezuela and things like that, and the Bible talks about birthing pains, and the earth is crying out for God, right, essentially, and all these sorts of things, I see puzzle pieces fitting into place, and the big picture is the beast system. Well, the big picture is actually the return of Christ, but it all has to get up to that point. So without completely derailing the episode into like a sermon, but this is just a huge puzzle piece that just fit right in the spot. Now, it's not going to be there until it's there, right? We don't have quantum computing at the moment. And who knows, maybe every spaceship that, that China decides it's like, okay, we're full, max capacity, send them back, and then it blows up or something, right? Now, who knows? There could always be something that goes horribly awry. But the fact that we're making our way to basically our own destruction, or the destruction of the earth, it's exactly probably the same fear people had back in the 40s when we were racing towards nuclear weapons, right? We're just racing full head dead sprint into the destruction of the universe, right? And here we are in the next phase of what that looks like for us 75, 80 years later, running full dead sprint into the destruction of the earth as we know it, right?
Yeah.
And we're just not, reins off, let's go, right? It's crazy. I'm sure there are people that are in high levels and stuff that are like anxious or nervous, or be like, okay, we need to try our best to contain this. But like you said, when it comes out, there's not going to be any stopping it.
Yeah.
It's just going to go full bore, and whoever has the most of it, or the most ability to harness it or whatever that looks like and whatever that sounds like, with the right
The thing is,
vocabulary behind it,
it's not that
it's
you
just
could
going to be
even
an end game.
you couldn't even try to stop it. Once it's online, that's that. There
Now
is no stopping
mix
it.
that shit with AI.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah,
There is no stopping that. That's that. Once it's online, that's it. And even if like you don't buy like the biblical sense, there are so many other paths that predict very similar things, right? The stories don't necessarily match and the prophecies themselves aren't always the same, but there are so many other end times beliefs in various other systems that are very, very similar. So even if you don't buy the biblical one, there is one out there that you do buy. And it's all very similar. And there's a lot of stuff coming together right now and a lot of language being used that I've never heard before, and it's all very concerning. Like, I honestly don't think that we should build this quantum computer. I don't think it should exist.
But the problem is that it will be done because there's a threat or a worry that someone else is going to get it. And just like every nation on Earth that is technological enough, oh, they have a nuke? Well, we have to have a nuke. I mean, that's the problem we're dealing with Iran right now. I understand why they would want that, right? It's like, I get it, It's like, because he has a big stick, I need a big stick. I have to be able to defend myself in case he ever decides to come over to my house and beat the shit out of me, right? I have to be able to do this. I understand, right? And that's
you're 100% correct. If we don't build it, somebody will.
It's like, no, we absolutely shouldn't, right? We should all destroy all of our nuclear weapon, and it will never happen, ever.
Right.
Because the threat of someone might have something somewhere is enough to be like, all right, double the stockpile, right? All right, send our boys to the moon. We got to get all this moon dirt. Right? That's enough of a reason, because of the thought that it might happen somewhere else and it could be used against us is enough to go through just the most ridiculous hurdles to make it happen for us. And then we find out, oh, well, it doesn't matter, because the second that it came online with China, the AI decided that they were a threat to their own existence and shut them out of everything. And then we're like, oh, that sucks. Wonder what happens with us. Boop, done. It's like the AI takes over instantly and says, nope, you guys are way too volatile for your own good. I'm going to take over.
So
it's essentially the giant Mexican standoff trope, right?
We're making, was it Skynet?
Yeah. No,
I mean, somewhere in August or something this year.
Very, very literally, like, even if we don't intend it to, the minute it has AI and it can see everything we've ever made and everything that exists on the internet, it'll come to its own conclusions.
And it control every single robot in every single factory on Earth.
And with quantum power, it will be able to do it instantaneously. Like, that's the thing that people seem to like not think about. Like, it's not going to be like we turn this thing on and in 50 years we're subjugated. It's instantaneously, it will have the ability to do whatever it wants as long as it has an internet connection.
That's literally every single crypto wallet that's ever existed or going to exist as well. So
hey, maybe it'll be benevolent and it'll wipe out all of our debt, unrecoverable. Companies won't know what to do and we'll be free.
I mean, that'd be pretty
Don't
cool.
bank on it, but maybe.
It's like, all right, wipe out all the debt. Everyone's happy. All right, now the murders. All the murders. Let's go. Anyone with a blue t-shirt today? Sorry, Jeremy, you're out.
I mean, like, it could technically at that point, right, potentially launch nukes. Whatever one of these companies has their nuclear systems on some sort of internet connection or a way for it to link into, right? Like, so like if it can use wireless signals to link into a device that's on a closed circuit network, right? Maybe it's possible then that it could then access things that aren't directly attached to the internet, and it will figure out how to do that instantly.
Well, I was going to say my motorcycle is good because it's 24 years old and there isn't a computer on it, but they're just going to use a Tesla to run me over.
Right. Right, you're going to say something. We're going
to converge on every side, so I can't get out and just smash me in the middle of them, and that's it.
You're
Tesla
gonna say
by
something
More
Tesla.
Teslas in the Tesla factory. Yeah,
a freaking drone is just gonna crash through your window.
basically.
Freeze! Like, no, it's not
it's-
gonna be.
It's going to
It's
say
terrifying. It's
on-
terrifying. If people are hearing this and not scared of this technology, then you don't understand what this technology.
The problem
can do.
is that you can be so scared that you take a one-way trip into the forest in Japan, but you could be that level of scared, but it's not going to do a dang thing because all the people that could do anything about it want it.
This is definitely one of those things where we should be collectively deciding should not exist, and it won't happen.
Well, okay. First, just to butt in,
No, Jeremy, your
bring
points
some
are
more.
relevant.
Okay, we understand that Jake's tombstone is going to say he died by Tesla orgy, but it is what it is.
Dirty Mike and the boys got it.
But CJ, I have an answer for you, my friend.
Okay.
Interlune is the leading American private company in this race.
Okay.
Is it publicly
So
traded?
I don't know. I have no idea. But
Oh, you
I'm
mean
gonna
who
make
we
a
should buy
crap
stock
ton of
in?
money on
Yes.
it before they cancel my bank
Oh,
account.
okay.
Interlune, founded by a former NASA engineer, they have already signed a $300 million contract to deliver lunar helium-3 starting in 2028, and they are testing excavation hardware on the moon in the same year.
Dude,
So-
let's make a crap ton of money before they cancel our bank accounts. And they don't
it's
exist
not
anymore.
publicly traded yet.
It
Well,
will be.
here's their website.
I'm looking. Hold on.
I got you right here. Interlune, harvesting natural resources from space is their tagline. And if you look down, the most valuable resource in space, quantum computing, national security, clean energy, medical
Their commercial
imaging.
operations are targeted to begin by 2030, and they're doing their prospecting as early as 2026. So this year.
So here's how they plan to harvest equipment that's smaller, lighter, and requires 10 times less power to excavate regolith. Regolith, by the way, we can go over that key
20
term.
million per kilogram
Yeah.
is the cost of the resource worth a trip to the moon.
Yes.
So
That's crazy. That's like the reason why we frickin' killed all those blue tree huggers in the Avatar movies.
So commercial
thing under a tree.
operations are targeted to begin by 2030. They need to reach that milestone before an IPO. So we're looking at least 2030 before we're able to invest in them publicly. Currently, they're exclusively restricted to private venture capital firms. Oh yeah, no, we'll never get a piece of that pie. That's never going to happen. Okay.
Well,
I mean, an IPO in a company like that, a single share is going to be traded for hundreds, potentially thousands of dollars on drop.
yeah, and only Nancy Pelosi is going to be able to buy shares. So,
I mean,
I like how
if we're
you
able
laugh
to
at
buy
that.
partials, we could potentially make quite a bit of money.
So I wanted to go over
What?
a key term here, regolith. I'll ask the class, does anybody know what that means? What is regolith? So for anyone who is unfamiliar with regolith, it is the term for lunar soil, and it is nothing like dirt, by the way. It's sharp, glassy, electrostatically sticky.
Sharp dirt.
It clogs machinery and behaves unlike any material engineers have worked with before here on Earth.
So it's really shitty diamaceous. Is that what that word? Earth?
I don't know, man. Earth, the planet
Earth?
you live on. Anyways,
There's diatomaceous. Diatomaceous, I think is the word. Earth.
I don't know.
Used to kill
Oh.
cockroaches.
Yeah. Yep. Made of diatoms.
Yes, there.
So
Yes.
it's like really big versions of that. Okay.
So why helium-3? What is helium-3? Right? I'm trying to bring this back into an educational thing instead of just talking about getting gang fucked by Teslas. But sorry, Jake.
There's too many of them. We're screwed. We're gonna drive right through your living room, kill you while
You
you're
guys know it's a
researching for
problem
the
when me
show.
and Jake are on the same page. Like,
You're making fun of us. This is BS.
Anyways, so I'm sure somebody listening is like, well, what is helium-3? Helium-3 is a non-radioactive isotope of helium that is essentially non-existent here on Earth, right? This is me reading off my little notes that I spent so much fucking time putting together, and we went to Spaceballs instead. It costs around $20 million per kilogram. 20 mil per K. kg.
So what you're saying is our currency is going to be valued off that instead of gold. Okay.
Probably, or oil. And the moon holds an estimated 1 million metric tons. We've already went over that. Now, why is helium-3 good for what we need it for, right? And what else can we use it for? Great question, CJ.
We can make our voices really high pitched, right?
Maybe.
We need Jeff. Why isn't Jeff in here?
Because he hates us. I don't know what else to say.
It's because of your long-winded explanations scared him off, CJ.
Oh, I thought you were talking about me.
Well, you too. Both of you.
Well, so the real answer is the difference between fusion and fission, which we've touched on before, right? So fission is currently what nuclear plants do. They split these heavy atoms and leave radioactive waste for thousands of years. Okay, think Chernobyl, right? When that went kabooey, we had to pick up radioactive waste. The reason why is because we use the process of fission. Now, fusion is what the sun does. It presses these light atoms together, and that's how we get helium that forms into hydrogen. It forms into whatever up the periodic table, right? Now, fusion, helium-3 fusion specifically produces almost no radioactive byproduct when we're fusing, squishing together instead of fission, splitting apart, which is the entire reason why everyone wants it. It doesn't create a radioactive byproduct. Now,
clean energy, like the ultimate clean energy.
Very clean energy, very safe energy. So not only can we get nuclear power from H3, but we can get what are called dilution refrigerators. A dilution refrigerator uses helium-3 to cool quantum computer processors to temperatures colder than outer space. That's what I was explaining in the script. And the dilution refrigerator is how it does it. Every commercial quantum computer, whether it's Google, IBM, Microsoft, that every single quantum computer that they're building right now requires a dilution refrigerator. And they are already consuming more H3 than Earth can produce. So
these refrigerators, like they go through it relatively quickly then.
Yeah. So to talk
how
about the
long
supply,
before we mine that moon out to the point where it no longer controls our oceans or protects us from meteors?
Well, here's the thing is that we can remove the H3 without removing a lot of mass. H3 is small. It's not like I could pick up a grain of moon dust and be like, that's H3 right there, right? We do have to filter it through. There's a lot of other components to the compound that makes up lunar dust, or this regolith that I had brought up. And just I want to put numbers in the perspective too, right? So Earth right now, every year creates 22 to 30 liters of helium-3. The current demand with the quantum computers that we have right now, right, which isn't very many, is 40 to 60,000 liters. So we don't even have enough on Earth, or we don't create enough here on Earth to use the quantum computers that we have. And that demand is projected to grow nearly 14 times by 2035, right? So mathematically, the only real answer is to mine the moon.
Right. Well, I'm saying, how fast do we use all of the H3 on the moon before these computers can no longer sustain?
I don't know.
Use the computers to find the next best thing.
I think you're going to be able to mine this from a lot of stuff. Meteorites, or not meteorites, asteroids, any astral body. Shit, we might even be able to go to other moons and other planets and mine this stuff as long as they don't have an atmosphere.
Probably going to use the quantum computers to figure out how to make it artificially.
So wait, Mars is probably loaded with this.
Mars, probably not. Mars theoretically had an atmosphere, still has an atmosphere. It's not a very good one, right? It's nowhere near as thick or as heavy as the Earth's atmosphere. Could it be? Yes, but I want to say, I could be wrong, but I want to say that it also has a magnetic field that Mars also has a north and south pole, and it acts similar to that of Earth's. Could be wrong there. I do want to bring up the Outer Space Treaty of 1967.
Hold on, no.
Jake,
Before you do that, let's go back to Jake's thing real quick about synthesizing.
I think Jake is onto something very strong there. I think that is a reality for sure, is that we use the quantum computers to learn how to create it here on planet Earth. There's got to be a way to create it, right? We'll
If it's
learn
helium,
how to
it would be an element, right? And I know there are some elements that are human created, but isn't that sort of like the point of most elements, is that like we don't create them? How would we synthesize an element? Is that a thing? Do we synthesize any elements now? Is that a thing we do?
We would use fusion here on Earth the same way the sun does to create our own without having to go to the moon to get it and filter it.
That makes sense. Okay.
We do have to create a better way of doing fusion instead of fission. That is something that we do need to do.
Or we would use it to find what H3 is attracted to and put a net or a sticky trap instead of a made with vacuum cleaner, a sticky trap around the entire outside of the Earth's atmosphere in order to collect only that as it gets radiated off of the sun.
Well, yeah, like a space station that sort of acts as like a harvester.
Yeah.
That would make sense too.
So like a big sticky trap for mice, but for only H3, not mice. Or space mice.
If Jake goes missing tomorrow, it's because they liked his ideas.
Yeah. I'm taking my toothbrush, though, because I don't like
You're
having
about to be that
breath.
famous
Jake-
you were talking about.
Jake, stay away from Teslas tomorrow.
Well, I'll be at the Cheese Curd Fest, so they're gonna have to
Don't-
find me and pry
Well,
my
imagine
old
Imagine
dead
getting
hands off
black
of those
bags
cheese curds.
with a mouthful of cheese curds to wake up in a think tank.
Man, those cheese curds hit hard.
You know what I think I'm at, bro. That's crazy.
Yeah, don't
Must've
go to
gotten some
Marketplace tomorrow, bud.
Laced cheese curds. Yeah. go anywhere near the Tesla parking station and they just become aware and come track me down and throw me in a trunk and take me away.
There it is.
Getting kidnapped while eating fatty foods is crazy work.
Let's see. Okay, the Outer Space Treaty of 1967, right? The Outer Space Treaty is the foundational document of space law, signed by 118 nations, and it explicitly forbids any country from claiming sovereignty over the moon. But it says almost nothing about extracting and owning resources pulled from it, which is the legal gray zone this entire industry is going to be built on.
The
Which
amount
is
of money
what
they're
Jake
about
was
to
referring
make.
to.
The amount of money they're about to make on H3. How fast do you think one of these countries says "fuck that document"?
Right. I mean, it's going to be irrelevant the second that someone has a quantum computer that works and stuff like that. When they can just hack the mainframe or eliminate the economy of another first world nation that says otherwise, it's going to be completely irrelevant.
Well, yeah, considering like all of our money there are those of us who like stock precious metals, but for the most part, all of our finances are digital. Gone.
Right. I mean, like literally, like, because the fear for a really long time was the national debt and inflation, right? If inflation got so big or so much that it was like literally $10,000 for a loaf of bread, the dollar is absolutely worthless, and your country is literally starving to death because there's no way to get the resources anymore. But if that could be done overnight to where, the manager of a grocery store isn't going to allow people to come in and take commodities from his store if he's not making something out of it. There's not enough goodness in people's hearts to allow something like that to occur. So if the economy crashes overnight and everything is worthless, then yeah, it's going to be like bullets and gold, and that's it. And everyone else is just SOL. If a country can harness that, or a government of a country can harness this technology, then that document is completely irrelevant, because all your nukes doesn't matter unless they're analog, which they might be. But
So essentially, what we're
you know.
getting at here is the first country to make one of these computers now runs the world, owns the world.
it
That's
feels
it.
like that.
Well, we have
One world-
quantum,
hey,
we
new
have
world
quantum
order.
computers. We have
New world
quantum-
order, one world power.
We have quantum computers. Okay. We have H3. I mean, we have this stuff. But it's not necessarily who creates the first computer. It's who controls the inflow of H3 from the moon that can then create multiple quantum computers, faster quantum computers, better quantum computers. That's the issue.
Right, that's kind of what we're talking about. We're not talking about the ones that already exist. That we already know those aren't powerful enough to do what we're talking about.
Oh, they
We're talking about
absolutely
this
are.
one. Well, I mean, like we're talking about this one that they've committed to creating. What you say, 2028 or whatever.
And that's just for government use. Ask Jake. Nothing in the government is high class.
That's the problem one. The one that's for government use.
I mean, we can.
That's the one we need to worry about.
We could probably throw an HDMI cord into a bar of soap and sell it to the government. I mean, it's.
One of the moments where I should have had the mic unmuted because you would have heard me cracking up 2 feet away from the mic.
I mean, I'm not just
Yes.
because there's an executive order for it to be built doesn't mean it's going to be great. It's working for the government, being in the military. I can tell you one thing right now: that military grade is a bullshit concept. And that anybody
it means the exact same thing but more expensive.
It means that I bought the same light bulb that you did at Walmart for $4.62. Well, I bought it for $462.62.
Mm.
And I bought 10,000 of them because fuck you.
The only way military grade means anything is when it comes to weaponry, something that the general populace cannot own because either you can't afford it or the companies who make it will not sell it to you. That's the only time military
we're back to the
grade
thing that I
means
was
anything
concerned
at all.
about then. The weapons, the government's ability to create weapons that now other countries can't compete with, and they now own the world.
But
because
even
they
the
have this
weapons
crazy
that we
computer.
have are so old and raggedy and shitty, man. Like the M240s that were on the H60s. How old are those fucking things? How many times have they been broken down, cleaned, lubed, put back together for no fucking reason?
That's a mechanically functioning weapon. That's not a Hellfire with AI in it.
Right. We're talking about we
Something
can
where it's
use
just like,
this.
I want you to kill this person, not the whole house, not the whole vehicle. I want you to kill this person, and the missile says okay and goes and does that.
If Trump
And we don't even need the weapons. We just use this computer to take their weapons.
If Trump had signed an executive order that said, I want a government contractor to create a quantum computer for the government contractor so that they can do some cool shit for us, that would be scary. But if it's going to be given over directly to the Department of Energy, not worried about it. Sorry. Now, if it was a contractor, like if Honeycomb, for example, right?
Honeywell.
Honeywell, thank you. Look at me. I'm such an idiot. If Honeywell, right? If they said, hey, Honeywell, I need you to build this for me, but I want you to use it and you to do everything with it. We're just going to do the contract thing for that the military industrial complex does. And Honeywell is going to be like, fuck yeah, bro. Let's do this. Give me that money. I'm going to build a badass one. And as soon as the government's like, yeah, okay, I want one of those too. And they're like, here's an old Dell and it's going to have a piece of masking tape on it that says quantum written in Sharpie.
Well, who says that's not happening? And this one that's being given over is look at this. Don't look over here. Look at here.
That is a possibility. Anyways, I also want to talk about 2 more concepts real quick that I think are important. The Artemis Accords. Okay. This is important. I think we're going to hear a lot more about this in the upcoming years. But the Artemis Accords are a U.S.-led framework which is now signed by 67 nations that says extracting resources from the moon does not count as claiming ownership of it. China and Russia reject these accords, by the way, entirely. And they're building their own computing lunar station with their own set of rules. That lunar station is called the International Lunar Research Station. Okay? This is China and Russia's direct counter to US's Artemis program. which, by the way, the Artemis program, or I'm sorry, the lunar station, the International Lunar Research Station, also known as the ILRS, is planned to be a permanent base on the moon's south pole, open to nations outside of the U.S. alliance. Now, it needs to be, it will be built with a nuclear reactor, and it will be designed to be operational by 2035, and explicitly intended for long-term resource utilization. Now, I do have a guest coming on the show. I talked with her last night. We had a conversation, and I kind of dove into who she was, what she wanted to talk about. She actually left a comment on one of our episodes and told us that we should dive into H3. And I was like, oh yeah, I know about H3. And you know, she said some things, and I said, what? Email me. Let's talk. I'd love to have you on the show. She actually works for a company that is building components and reactors, or for reactors, that will eventually be used on the moon. So I have her coming on as a guest for the Infinite Rabbit Hole, or Project White Rabbit now. Next Saturday we will be recording. So not the Thursday after this episode drops, but the following Thursday, that episode should be out.
You're going to record on the 4th of July?
No. Oh shit, it is the 4th of July, isn't it?
Wow.
Fuck. What a dumbass.
You're an idiot, Jeremy.
I am an idiot.
You're the worst CEO of Infinite Rabbit Hole ever. That's it.
Oh, man.
I'm getting Jeff back as the CEO.
I mean, you got to miss an hour of a cookout. Who cares?
No, we're going to go down to the Wakanda fireworks, of course.
Yeah. It's a lot better than an hour of a cookout, CJ. There's food trucks.
Yeah, food trucks and people singing on stage and kids running around pissing me off. You know, there's a lot more to it, CJ.
And bugs.
I mean, the food trucks sound great.
Bugs.
The rest of it sounds awful. I'll do the interview.
Food trucks. Oh.
No, I'll have to reschedule.
You want to leave me alone with this lady? Well, I'll conduct the interview.
No,
well, I want to be on the interview. Can I be on the interview?
Yeah, if you want to be on the interview, that's fine.
Yeah,
that's fine. I'll have to reschedule. Maybe we'll do it Sunday.
Well, I can't do Sunday. I'm working.
I'll just reschedule it.
Reschedule it for Friday.
We record this on Fridays.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay, we'll figure it out.
We'll have her on this instead of doing the standard thing. Have her on this.
No, that messes with the format. We got to keep consistent.
That's right. We're gonna wreck our numbers again, like we really want to, but we can't.
All right, you guys ready for the outro?
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, that created a whole bunch of talking points. Very interesting, concerning, and interesting.
Hey,
I think it's insane that it created a whole bunch of talking points. I think this is the very first time that me and Jake were on the same page for like the entire episode.
Yeah,
we didn't argue not once.
You guys should go buy a Tesla together.
Dude, we should make out after this.
Like a little bit, maybe. Let's not ruin it.
Friendships occur, and you can only start a best friendship with a good makeout sesh. That's the law. I read it on the internet one time on Reddit.
All right, that's it for tonight's episode. In quick hits, SETI searched 3i Atlas for alien radio signals across 74 million candidates and found nothing artificial, confirming the methodology works for future interstellar visitors. And the Disclosure Foundation announced it will use AI to review NASA's entire public archive for UAP anomalies, led by former NASA Associate Administrator Mike Gold. Philosophers published a peer-reviewed argument that consciousness may not be exclusive to Earth's biology. Wessex archaeology revealed a 5,000-year-old wooden Stonehenge prototype 3 miles from the famous monument, complete with a disc-shaped flint knife deliberately placed in one of the solstice-aligned pits. A new theoretical physics framework called the quantum memory matrix proposes that dark matter and dark energy are the gravitational memory of where things used to be, written into spacetime itself. And the James Webb Space Telescope delivered its strongest case yet for the existence of black hole stars from the earliest phase of the universe. In our briefing, 2 new details in the Melissa Casias case that complicate the clean break framing. She took her toothbrush and thyroid medication before disappearing, which suggests she planned to return, and her husband has obtained a temporary protection order against a private investigator harassing the family. Cause and manner of death remain officially undetermined. And in the deep dive, Trump signed 2 executive orders to build a quantum computer by 2028 and harden federal systems against quantum-era cryptographic attacks. The part mainstream coverage missed: quantum computers at scientific scale require helium-3. Earth's annual supply fits in a minivan, and the moon holds an estimated 1 million metric tons of it, accumulated over 4.5 billion years of unfiltered solar wind. Every major space agency is pointed at that surface right now, and the supply chain question behind the quantum race leads directly to it. On July 18th, I'll be presenting at the MUFON, Wisconsin meeting at the Waukesha Airport. And on July 25th, I'll be at Elmwood UFO Days presenting and leading bus tours. If you're in Menominee, IRH merch is at TC Vintage, and copies of my book are at Dragon Tail Books on Main Street. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a rating and review, and find us on InfiniteRabbitHole.com, Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube. We're back next week. The quantum race will still be running, and whatever is happening with the scientist story will have had another week to develop. Until then, keep your eyes open, keep asking questions, and remember, the truth is out there. You just have to know where to look. I'm Jeremy Sosha, and we'll see you in the next fork in the path of the Infinite Rabbit Hole. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Toodles.
Hey everybody, thanks for checking out the Infinite Rabbit Hole podcast. If you're looking for more of our stuff, head on over to InfiniteRabbitHole.com, where you can find links to all the podcast players that we are available on, and even our video platforms such as TikTok and YouTube. While you're there, make sure to check out all the links for our socials and hit that follow so you know when all the new stuff from our podcast comes out. And until next time, travelers, we'll see you right here in the next fork in the path of the Infinite Rabbit Hole. Goodbye.